Okay, I think one of the best things that you could possibly imagine from playing football here is you're a part of that family forever. And you can sit down and talk with your teammates, the people you played with, you can tell stories. It's just a wonderful experience. I have a great story about Richie Policastro sitting here. We were playing Columbia. It was, I guess, about 4 or 5 seconds left till halftime. Frank Burns took 2 consecutive timeouts to let Richie know what plays to run. And I'm standing there as the defensive captain and listening to all this. And they called a running play. And then I watched them go out on the field, and Richie throws a touchdown pass to Bob Stonebreaker. And Frank runs out, and then the half ended as we scored. And Frank goes out running backwards in front of Richie saying, "You are so damn lucky you scored, because that's not the play I called." So
Yeah, but my logic behind it was, if we ran the ball and he got stopped, it would expire and he didn't score a touchdown. Whereas if I was throwing the ball, I could throw an incomplete pass and still do the running play. So to me, it wasn't much of a risk. And because Burns and I had a good relationship, so I could get away with things like that.
And Frank was an assistant at that time.
Correct.
He was an assistant coach, and then would then go on to be the head coach, who I played for from 74 to 78. And when Frank called the play, that's the play you ran. There was no deviation whatsoever. And if where there was a problem, you would know the veins in his neck would come out very, very prominently. And you didn't want to make a mistake. You weren't going to cross Frank Burns.
No, not at all. In fact, Bryant Mitchell, who was a Hall of Fame football player here at Rutgers and was a running back, all East, and his quote on Coach Burns was very simple. When he tells you to sit down, you don't look for a chair. So that's how we felt about Frank Burns. We called him Black Bart back then, not to his face. But when you said Black Bart, you knew it was Coach Burns we were referring to.
And Coach Burns, you know, is the winningest coach in Rutgers history, All-American. He played quarterback and middle linebacker. That's a heck of a duo.
As an All-American.
As an All-American in the late 40s. So
And even then, in '49, the college all-stars played the NFL, the winners of the NFL. And Burns was named the MVP of that game, and the other linebacker was Chuck Bednarik. And in those days, they went both ways.
Yeah.
But Burns was a linebacker quarterback. So you tough, I don't know how many quarterbacks played linebacker in college.
You know, and they picked the right guy. When they picked the next head coach, when Coach Bateman retired, there was a sense of urgency for the state of New Jersey, for Rutgers University to move to big-time football. And Frank had this campaign and he had a lot of respect from other coaches throughout the United States. Athletic director at the time, they started to upgrade the schedule and the program. But Frank had an urgency to go get New Jersey athletes. And he had a relationship in New Jersey that had to be built, because as an assistant, he didn't have the name that Bateman had. So there was a building process to go build his reputation and then start moving to a bigger time football. I mean, most of the games that you guys, if we look at your schedule, your biggest game of the year was probably
Navy, Army, but back then you got to understand, you know, that was the era of Staubach and Bellino.
They were good teams.
Navy was tops in the country, you know, I'd say top 20. But naturally today they aren't at that caliber. But other than that, it was an Ivy League schedule.
Ivy League schedule: Harvard, Columbia, Dartmouth, Brown. You guys would play. They'd come down. And when my first year in '74, probably half the schedule was Ivy League, and then Air Force would come in, or Louisville, or Syracuse, and they were big games. And you know, there was again a sense of urgency to win those games to show that we could be big time. And making that transition was on the shoulders of Frank Burns and his staff. Many of those guys that he hired as coaches played with you guys. Who you had? Billy Speranza.
Right.
Well, he was our freshman coach. When I was a
Lisa went
freshman.
on to be the head coach at Columbia.
Right.
Pete Savino coached then, and he was also a coach at Columbia and recruited 2 of my nephews to play at Columbia, which they did. So, well, Pete was a great guy, and we have an outing in his name, and we have
Coming up in 2 weeks.
It's coming up in 2 weeks.
Ted Cottrell, I think, had just started in '74 and went on to lead an amazing NFL coaching career with, I know, several teams.
Buffalo,
Chiefs. I think he was with Giants for a short time. But,
And he still keeps in touch. I know like Mel Brown, who played with us, he was our fullback. He's in touch with Teddy all the time, and that's the kind of bonding we had. And when you see them, it's not Ted Cottrell making $500,000 working in the NFL. It's your coach, and you play with them, and that's how it is. No one has pretense. I've never met anyone, any letter winner, who's really full of themselves. They aren't. They're just good guys.
And that's a good point. That's the fun part about game day. Being on the sideline, you don't know who you're going to see next. Sometimes you'll see the press around, an NFL player who's currently playing. He may be playing in the area. They're playing against the Jets or the Giants, and he'll stop by the game on Saturday because they have their game on Sunday. But you don't know who's going to. It may be your roommate. We'll show you turn and you look, and there's your roommate giving the biggest hug, the greatest handshake, going back after tailgate after the game, and having something cold with them after the game, and seeing their family, and meeting their kids and whatnot. And it's some of the best part of the weekend. Not only the game, but what goes on before and after the games, and it just feels good.
Well, it's the character, It's like Dr. King said. It's your character. I don't care who you are or what you did. And they're good guys. I mean, 2 little examples. The letter winners meeting the other day. Sean O'Hara came to the meeting. I was impressed with that, not because it was Sean O'Hara, but Sean O'Hara, an NFL football player, took the time out, and he came to a Rutgers football letter winners meeting. No big deal. He just sat back and listened and was very, very thoughtful and insightful, but didn't dominate the conversation, didn't walk in like who I am. Not at all. And another thing, when I was young, Bill Austin was an All-American football player. He's a great football player. And I'd never met him. And my father used to talk about Rutgers and Bill Austin. Bill Austin, I'm 8 years old, 9 years old, I'm hearing about it. Now I meet him, and I'm somewhat starstruck. And Bill looks at me and goes, Ollie, we played football together, This is no big deal. I said, but you don't understand, you're Bill Austin,
Bill Austin was a first-team All-American in 1959 when there were only 11 All-Americans, and he was from Rutgers. So that's very interesting. He was the top running back in the country, and he's an incredible person, and he's right. It's all about the team, and our goal with the letter winners is clearly we want everybody. We're not satisfied with, we'll get 80%. No, we want everybody to be a part of the letter winners organization. You're already a part of it. We want you to be an active member. Active member just means you send your name in and say, make sure I'm on the list so I get the minutes. And we're not going to stop until we get everybody to be a part of this great organization.
And it won't only be for home games. We're on the road too, and we're going to be having events at those away games, and we've got some pretty big away games. When you look at Big Ten, where we'll be going, and there's a lot of Rutgers people throughout the United States that are going to be joining us, and former players and letter winners. So we're going to make sure we'll have those events planned, and the word will get out. And that's why we're upgrading our website and using this technology to have a community, have communication and dialogue between former players.
Also, another aspect is the recent letter winners, I believe it's 4 years.
4 years.
They do not have to pay dues to our organization.
Right.
And our dues is $100 a year, which really
That's for sideline pass. The dues for people who just want to be a part of it and get the minutes is $25.
And also, when we have a tailgate, we charge cost. $20, $25. Where are you going to go for $20, $25?
All you can eat.
All you can eat. You have to bring your own BYO. But other than that, and that's what it's about. It's just about camaraderie, getting together, and having a good time.
Yeah. And then the letter winners on the sideline, the support for the team, I think, is incredible. That's something certainly that Greg Schiano wanted to see. He wanted to see the team behind the team, standing on the field to let the other team know that we're one heck of an organization with a lot of tradition, a lot of people involved.